without crossing out checker flag. That's a fine. Awesome drive, man. Awesome drive.
It's nice to close out a race like that. That was awesome.
This is the Team Blaney Podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to 2023 season episode 26 of the Team Blaney Podcast. My name is Adam Rogers, and alongside me is co-host Steve Mez. As always, this podcast is brought to you by fans for fans. Steve and I have been following the drivers of the Blaney racing family for 2 decades, and Team Blaney itself launched on social media in 2014. Now, each weekly episode of the podcast offers an in-depth analysis of Ryan Blaney's latest NASCAR Cup Series race, plus news notes and a lineup of special guests all throughout the year. This week, we break down the number 12 team's run in the High Point 400 this past weekend at Pocono Raceway. Steve, welcome back to episode 26, fresh off this race out there in the Pocono Mountains, the Poconos, one of your favorite places, one of your favorite tracks, one of your favorite memories. And man, place was packed, and the racing excitement, again, I hate saying this is the top of the show, despite what happened with our favorite team there. I feel like the racing excitement and the race itself and the action and drama pretty much delivered this week. And outside of the ARCA race, there was no weather.
Yeah, pretty good weekend for the staying dry. Yeah, your host at the most in the Pocono Raceway. They teed it up on Sunday, and man, we had a lot of excitement with some of these restarts, and they had a lot of restarts after a while. But really, except for the mechanical issue we're going to talk about in a little bit, really good race, really well done weekend. You know, they put together the speed, they moved up quickly, they put themselves in position. The strategy calls were awesome. You know, I know that, you know, some people want stage points, and it's usually a good idea, but we've got the win in the bag. So we know we're in the playoffs. And this was one of those races, if you're going to try to win the race, you had to pit at certain times, and they executed those pit stops really, really well. Even with the, we'll talk about some adversity with the pit crew this past weekend even, and they did a great job with the fill-in guys. So, you know, except for like I said, we're going to talk about a mechanical issue that is a gremlin that you really can't do much about. It happens every once in a great while. Glad to see that happen now and not in the next couple of months when we really don't want anything like that to happen. So, you know, I take a positive weekend, even though, you know, that's not a positive finish or a positive points day.
It's funny that you mentioned the restarts and starts of the races going into this week after some shenanigans that's been happening in the Truck Series and Xfinity Series, and a little to Cup, a little bit of an extent. NASCAR said they were going to send out like a pretty stern worded warning out to the race teams about, you know, stop messing around on restarts, you know, stay in line, keep it clean. And then
quit
lagging.
Lagging is the big thing.
And then immediately, yeah, go ahead.
I'll say Ryan actually makes a comment, and I'll have it in the notes here, I think, where somebody was lagging on one of his restarts. So yeah.
Yeah. And they immediately, though, in the Xfinity race and the Truck Series race, big crashes on restarts. Guys were lagging behind. There's actually one restart. You know, some people love Parker Klingerman because of, you know, his TV personality and stuff, but he is an extremely aggressive guy in the race car. They followed Klingerman for a restart, and boy, he almost like a full car length lag behind. And I was like, well, that message didn't seem like it got out there to everybody, because there are big crashes on these restarts. I mean, even the Cup race, how many in a row to start this thing off? People crashed over and over again. So it's just it's unfortunate, but it didn't scar the weekend. I don't think so. I think across all 3 series, it was a pretty great weekend. I can say, man, I know our buddy Josh Williams, who filled in as a spotter for the 7 car this week because Chase Elliott was in the race, so that he took away his spotter, Eddie DeHaan, from Justin Allgaier. So Josh actually got to step in and spot for Justin Allgaier this week, and it's kind of disaster struck in all 3. Well, disaster in the first 2, and then an unfortunate mechanical problem in the 3rd race. So hopefully Josh can shake off this weekend and move on to Richmond next week and look for some wins or something better for sure.
Yeah. None of it was his doing. No.
No.
As a matter of fact, both guys, really didn't have the crashes and had nothing to do with anything they could do. As a matter of fact, Josh could not, in the truck race, really couldn't get. Zane was just in a bad spot when everything happened. I mean, Josh gave him direction, but it was just he was just too close to it. So yeah, things like that. Yeah. Josh does the best he can, but to help these guys, but there's sometimes it's just nothing you can do. He got, as a matter of fact, I think it was Zane's situation. He hurry up and get out of the car, hurry up and get out of the
Yeah.
car. You're on fire.
On
fire. He's telling him you're clear. He's trying to tell him where to go and what to do. And Zane got down to the left-hand side, got down off the track, and quickly got out of the truck. And that's the best thing you can see in that situation. So I mean that's that, and Josh will tell you that's job number one is safety more than anything else. That's why he's there. So he tried to get him through there, but once he couldn't get through it, the truck caught fire, and Josh hurried up and got him off the track, made sure he knew it was on fire, and got him out of there.
Yeah, scary situation. So let's talk about the 12 teams weekend, which they ended up with a good car by the time they got into the race. But let's talk a little bit about practice and qualifying, because when practice kicked off, man, it was a little concerning.
Yeah, it is, but it isn't. We know now through experience and watching, especially these with what they do at Penske and what Jonathan does with setup, is that they may try something and throw it against the wall and see if it sticks. So Ryan's in Group A, and 2 laps in, way off, just a couple seconds a lap off, and they come in right away, too loose. So. They don't come back out till, I don't know, it's less than 10 minutes to go in the session. And he jumps it all the way up to P2 when he comes back out. So whatever,
I could breathe then. Yeah. I was like, oh, okay, everything's fine.
Yeah. But like I said, I think they do it. I don't want to say on purpose, but on purpose. I think they try some things. They build in some adjustability. They know that if it doesn't work out right, they can hurry up, come in and fix it. So yeah, I mean, and the 11 car was super fast in that session too. He ran his fastest lap 10 laps in. So that told you there wasn't going to be a lot of tire fall off either. Once they do come back out of there, and they run that lap, Jonathan tells them to run it all the way to the end. The 11 and the 16 get to be first and second fast. Ryan is like P4, but then again, like I said, Ryan on his 11th lap goes all the way back up to P2. He runs about 12 laps here, but it's the 11, the 12, 23, 16, and the 6 are the fast 5 in that group. In Group B's practice, the 45, the 8, 24, the 5, and the 19. And you combine them. I think Ryan would have been like 11th fastest if you combine the two groups. Once again, NBC will split them up, but then the app will put them together. So it's kind of a little bit easier to keep track of like where they are compared to everybody else. So Ryan goes out in Group A. He goes out 14th out of 17. The 38 spins in his qualifying lap. Ryan is up to P4 with 5 people to go. So it just doesn't look too good there. He ends up P7. I mean, 53.425 is a really good lap. And let's see, the 23, the 11, the 20, the 2, and the 22 are the 5 that go on to pole qualify there. Group B, the 9 spins it out. 45, the 4, the 24, 19, and what was that? Was it 7 in there as the fast 5? Because I believe they said the 7 finally made it to a pole qualifying there. Thought they said. Ryan ends up starting 14th here, and 24 gets the pole. So we go to Sunday, and it's 30 laps, 95 and 160. 7 sets of tires, a fuel run about 36 to 40 laps. So except for that first segment, and like I said, racing this like a road course is interesting because you're going to go to get in your fuel windows and then come in, not look at the stage breaks. And you can do a pit stop and not lose the lead lap. So that's what a lot of these guys are doing. Pit stall 14 has the 41 in front of him and open behind him. And then we get the news that there's going to be a pit crew change, and Ryan Flores had an emergency surgery on Saturday night. So we wish him well. We hope he gets healthy soon. He'll be back, as soon as he's healthy enough to come back. But what a scary thing to have to go through. Just I can't imagine. I've had health scares myself before, going to the hospital and then finding out you need to have surgery, emergency surgery, is, and we get Joe Dilly ends up filling in. I'm not really sure which team we pulled Joe from, because I know they supply a couple of the other Ford teams besides the Penske teams.
At least the 21 and one of at least one of the front row cars. I don't know about
teams.
both, but yeah.
So Joe ends up being our fill-in guy for the day, and actually, I guess he's going to fill in till Ryan Flores comes back. We have two spotters for this race. Josh, of course, is the spotter, but this track, the way the track is designed, the spotter stand where it's at, they lose sight of things going into turn one. So Mule, I don't know where exactly they position him. I believe somewhere in the infield area where he can face turn one and see all the cars in turn one. But Mule actually spots turn one this whole race and does a fabulous job, because, as we see during the race, turn one is where all the action happens on these restarts. Right after the command, Jonathan gets on and tells Ryan, saving fuel. And he doesn't even have to say it as the day goes on, because every time there's any kind of stoppage, any kind of caution, it's fuel saving mode. Shut it off, turn it on, shut it off, turn it on. On our initial start here, 24 starts with the high lane. Ryan gets all the way up to 11th in the first lap from 14th. By lap 3, he passes the 45. He's up to 10th. And lap 5, we get a caution for the 15 car spinning in 2. Jonathan, of course, we're staying out. Leader takes the top on this first one. Ryan from 10th takes the top, and they restart lap 11. Passes the 2 car, gets to 9th. The 22 takes the lead at this point, showing that the Penske Ford's got some speed. Lap 12, he passes the 45, gets to 8th. At lap 20, I've got him a little over a second back of 7th place here, and about 4 seconds off of Joey. And they kind of it's within a 10th here and there every lap. They don't really they get strung out there. Then at lap 27, they start doing some pitting with 3 to go. Ryan comes in, and it's a 4-tire stop. I think this ends up being the pit stop of the week. It was like 10.25 seconds, something like that. And mind you, it's not sub 10, but once again, all these pit stops on Sunday were about fuel. It takes longer to fuel the car than it does change tires. 3 cars end up staying out during this pit cycle, and we get to the end of the stage at lap 30. The 22 wins the stage. Ryan ends up 27th. So this is kind of going to, now you're going to have a bunch of cars pit during the stage break. So after everyone else pits.
I was going to say, you mentioned at the top of the show about people maybe being upset with the strategy, not understanding the strategy. I think the play here, short pit, and they're actually trying to hit a certain number of pit stops. They only want to make 3 or 4, I forget what it is, maybe 3 pit stops in the whole race. If everything goes perfectly and cautions fall the right way and your engine can last the whole race, that's what the goal was, at least. So you're going to sacrifice stage points, or at least opportunity for stage points, in an effort to put you in the best position for a win. Like you said, we already have a win in the bank. So it's the best opportunities to go out there and win more races than necessarily try to gather stage points at this point. So, I like the strategy. There's a lot of other cars that were on that. There were several that were on it that made it to the end and had a shot to win the race, despite all the shenanigans and things that happens in the closing lap. So that's kind of why this happens. Yeah, it's people don't understand, oh, you're running so well, why would you sacrifice that? But trying to sacrifice for the greater good.
And as we find out as we go through this, the strategy was perfect. Obviously, what ends up happening to the vehicle is a whole nother story, but the strategy was perfect because it worked, and if things had played out a little differently, it'd have been real interesting to see how that went. So after everyone else pits, like he's P5. It's the 24, the 5, the 4, the 20, and the 12. The first car that pitted during this cycle will be starting from P14. That's the 11 car. The leader is the 24. He takes the top. Ryan takes the bottom here, restarting at lap 36. We get a caution of 1 for the 22, the 99 being involved. The 23 and 34 may have taken some damage here. Ryan's up to 4th.
Now, on the opposite end of the strategy, the 22 stayed out to go for a playoff point. So there's kind of two different things. So if Ryan was maybe leading this race, maybe they do stay out, and maybe it changes the way that they were thinking. That was especially when I don't know if this would change with Jonathan, but when Todd Gordon was a crew chief and he saw that carrot of a playoff point for winning a stage out there, that's one of the reasons why Ryan has won so many stages in his career. Todd would always go for that. And seems like, that's kind of what Joey ended up doing here. The downside is, and this isn't going to happen every single time, but Joey does that, then pits, gets put in the back. And as a lot of people said this week across several different races, you're back there with the squirrels. And and unfortunately he got bit here. And it was, I've talked to you about the situation where Joey's tires are down. I think he hit the wall a little bit. He's stranded out there. A lot of people are giving him flack for, having a meltdown in the car. But man, just think about it on yourself. Like, especially if maybe that car, before the damage it gets from being towed, maybe it could have finished the race. Like, God, it has to be so incredibly frustrating, especially when you just had a car that was leading the race, to just get immediately taken out, moments later. So I'll give Joey a pass on this one. There's plenty of other reasons to be hard on the guy. I won't for this, because you're just out there in the middle of the desert, basically trying to get some help. And unfortunately, the rescuers don't really know what to do with you.
Yeah. He mentioned it afterward about why don't they just bring some tires out there? There's got to be a better way, because the way they hook those cars up, they just drag them. And they just ruin the back end, the diffuser, and everything else when they do it. So
well, they tried something different this time. They actually lifted the back end of his car up.
Yeah, it's true. They were doing
and towed him this time. So it's like, I think they're actually trying to save the diffuser, but then his front tires just started to come apart, and that whole front end of the car was destroyed. So
it was just bouncing.
It's like, man, it's like, I guess it'd be better just to scrape the diffuser off than it would be for the other go the opposite direction. So I don't know what the solution is. We've kind of gone back and forth on that, but maybe they can figure something out.
So we get to the next, Ryan's up to 4th at this point. The 24 leading, they of course stay out here. 24 takes the top, Ryan takes the bottom, ends up in row 2 here. We restart lap 42, and then we get a caution for the 3 car in 1. And Ryan says the 54 should be penalized for laying back on the restart. So, just like we talked earlier about these restarts, the 54, he was laying back instead of getting up there and pushing. And these guys trying to get their own runs together, trying to get somebody to push them, and then maybe they get underneath you and then, cause all these problems. And it's the one thing NASCAR's trying to, they want a whole train going down there. They don't want guys separating and spreading out into 6 wide. But 24 still leading here. Ryan's in 4th. They're staying out. 24 takes the top. Ryan takes the top, row 3 this time, and he's behind the 24 and the 4, and the restart lap 46. Then we get a caution for the 5 car. Ryan ends up 5th during this, and the 20 was pushing in turn 1. And Ryan says here, he says, "You got to let him go sooner or later there, Seabell." And Josh says, "No, he did once he saw the door number."
Yeah, and I think obviously that's funny, but I think Christopher, acknowledged that I think I pushed him a little too long.
Yeah.
So
if you see the replay they showed on TV as this was happening, literally it was from an in-car camera, and that's what it was. It was the 5 spinning sideways, and then I don't know which in-car it was. Somebody either to the right of Seabell. It was somebody to the right of Seabell, because they showed Seabell hitting him in the corner, and then sure enough, the 5's turning sideways, and then all you see is the door. And then Seabell he kind of slows down and goes inside of him. But I just thought it was a great little conversation there. The 4 car ends up pitting. Ryan, Jonathan has Ryan stay out here, so he gets up to P3 here. The 24, the 20, then the 12. 24 takes top. Ryan takes top with the 54 behind him here. They restart lap 51, and the 54 does a much better job. And I wrote in the notes there, we made it through turn one.
That's the goal.
Yeah, how many cautions in a row there, and it was all in turn one. So lap 55, we're up to P2 here. We're about a half second back. And lap 60, it's about 7/10 back. And Ryan's talking about being a little bit tight here. Lap 66, Jonathan says we'll be able to run this pretty long if you think you can hang on, basically. And I think the answer was affirmative. So lap 70, Josh kind of points out there's some cloud cover coming a little bit, which may help with the grip. We're 1.98 back of the 24, and the 54 in third is a little over a second behind Ryan. So lap 73, we start some green flag pitting, and at lap 80, Ryan does pit. Small wedge adjustment. They're going on the jack, and I put fuel in parentheses because they're not dropping the jack till they got enough fuel, basically. They merge back into some traffic here. At lap 84, he passes a 38 into 16th. Lap 85, Jonathan tells him, hold your position, save your stuff. So in other words, it kind of got into an area here where you really can't catch the guy in front of you. And unless the guy behind you is really trying to do something, you can pretty much hold him off. They're up to P12. Some cars still need to pit at this point. Lap 86, he passes the 14, gets to 11th. Ryan says, we're pretty loose right now. Hope it gets better with the heat cycle, the tires here. The 5 is leading. Ryan says he's kind of sideways in 3. At lap 90, the 54 does pass Ryan. Ryan's back to 12th here. At lap 91, some of the other ones start to do their pitting. Ryan's up to 10th. At lap 92, Ryan's up to 8th. And we get a caution for the 20 spinning in 2. And they hold off any restarts. We get to lap 95, and the 5 wins the stage. And Ryan ends up 8th here and gets stage points.
Which, considering the strategy, that's actually good because there wasn't really a guarantee that they'd actually get any points the rest of the way until the end. So that worked out okay.
That worked out pretty good. We're staying out because we just pitted before the end of the stage here. After these pit stops, Ryan cycles up to 3rd. So once again, the strategies work perfect. We're up near the front now. It's the 24, the 54, the 12. The 11 is the first car off pit road, and he's 16th. And let's get to the next page here. And the 24 takes the top, and Ryan takes the bottom and is in row 1. And he said thank you with the 19 behind him pushing, which is a great guy to have push you. Restarting at lap 100, the 19 within the lap pushes Ryan to the lead. And we lead a lap or 2. And then the radio is just a little helter-skelter all of a sudden because Ryan thinks he's blowing up. And I have written here just dropping like a stone because they dropped a cylinder. They're running.
It's helpless.
Yeah. We get about 8 miles an hour slower. And I was commenting actually with Jonathan on this week. They did a great job. Josh did a great job, believe it or not, with Ryan, keeping him from getting run over. This is a situation where he's all the way at the front, and people are going to pass him now. They're going to because he's down a cylinder.
And he doesn't want to just pull over because these cars can be finicky sometimes. They flip a switch and it can come back on. So he doesn't want to lose all his track position. So he's trying his best to just kind of fall through the field. And man, it's worth mentioning the fact that he started on the inside for that restart and took the lead. Obviously the push from the 19 helped a lot, but that tells you what, but it's like, man, the car like peaked. It was like so good. And then it just gave up like minutes after he takes, or seconds after he takes the lead. And like you said, the strategy worked out perfectly. They got them the track position they needed. They just scored some stage points off it. And then there's, like I said, helpless was the only thing. And as I just said, I was hoping that, maybe if he flips a couple switches, something, maybe if they can get to pit road, it's a wire. And
it takes, this all happens on like lap 102, and he had led, I think, 2 laps at that point. Then they get the caution at lap 107 for the 3 car and the 45 car. and they do talk on the radio at this point. Jonathan has him, there's a diagnostic thing on the digital dashboard, and he has him flip it over, and there's something they can read on there, and it says valve train. And it says, he tells Ryan, there's really nothing we can do about it. It's just going to be that way the rest of the race. Ryan makes a comment to the effect of, why couldn't this happen next week at Richmond? And that's not because he hates Richmond, but Richmond is a track that you could run a cylinder short and probably still be competitive, especially with all the shifting that these guys are going to do at Richmond. So yeah, it's just really a really bad situation for the rest of the race for Ryan. But the 3-car and the 45 end up in a little tussle here to cause this caution. And one guy says it was the other guy, and the other guy says, I don't know about that. And I don't think the 45 actually did it on purpose, I think the 3
he held his lane. He held his line, I should say.
I think the 3-car caused his own accident, and yet he blew up on the radio. You're saying that maybe I
think RC I think he encouraged him a little bit too much. And man, those helmets are expensive. And man, yeah, a few thousand, especially if he had a fancy paint, because it's not just your typical blank Bell helmet or something. Like starts that way, and then they send it off to a painter usually who does some custom graphics, and that one might not be coming back to the track. And the penalty report came out. Well, the lack of a penalty report basically came out this week, which we can talk about maybe toward the end. But no fines or anything. I'm guessing he probably got a phone call but that's about it. So no phone call, but he chucked his helmet. I kind of was joking to myself the fact that I was like, oh, he tried to bounce pass it to the Jordan car, but it didn't work. It went out of bounds. So unfortunate for him that he chucks his helmet and it doesn't actually make any contact. So it would have been interesting to see what NASCAR does if it does make contact. Now, with the old car, there could have been a chance of it making a dent. The new car, it's just going to bounce off anyway. So,
well, off the side, but the front of a car would have been interesting too, because what if you hit that? Even at the speed.
Yeah, the other cars were lucky; they missed it too, for sure.
Yeah, what if they would have hit that? Would have went up into the air, who knows what and where, and maybe damaged the radiator or something if you hit it just right. I don't know. They do pit a couple times during all this to give him adjustments and to try to, they open up the hood at one point to try and look in there, but we're all the way back to 30th now, and the restart lap 111 with the 19 leading. Lap 113, Josh tells him the 15 to 38 are for positions ahead of him, but Ryan's 31st, and he's running like 55-second laps. So, about 2 seconds off the pace. And,
what's interesting in this is the fact that the rest of the way, basically, even though there is kind of a highlight at one point, that it shows you how underpowered engine-wise some of the back marker cars are. Like, Ryan was kind of able to keep up with the pack, and he was racing around like the 78 and stuff, who have a motor that's functioning properly, but might be a third tier motor from Hendrick or whoever they get their motors from. And it's just like, man, it's like those guys really don't have a shot at all. Even if they had the most amazing setup of all time, they're so underpowered that a driver in a Penske car with a valve train issue is able to keep up with you.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a little bit more eye-opening to like, how underpowered some of those guys are. Even though all the cars are identical parts wise now, it's still, that engine's still going to be a critical factor in whether you can run mid pack or up front.
Lap 120, they just start doing some pit stops here, because this will be like the final pit stop for a lot of guys. By lap 131, Ryan's up in the top 9 because they haven't pitted yet. So
Penske had some fun about him re-entering the top 10. And this is when I think I made a tweet too about like, where's the rainstorm now? Can you imagine that if that actually happened?
Yeah,
like if it rains, that'd be fantastic.
You should have got a top 10 out of it. Yeah.
Yes.
I got the 5 car should be the leader after they all pit here at lap 132. The 5, 11, 19, he lets them pass. So he's back to 12th. Lap 139, the 7 actually takes the lead here. Ryan's up to 18th. with the 5 car in P5 now. So there's about 4 or 5 cars that still need to pit, and then that'll put the 5 back at the lead here. Lap 140, Jonathan tells Ryan he's about 10 away. At lap 141, we get caution for the 14 in turn 3. And so Ryan does pit. He was all the way back to 23rd, and they drop back to keep something from happening on the restart. So even though they're 23rd, he just drops back to the back and lets other guys ahead, because he just knows that even up there, he could cause a problem, not being as fast as everybody. The restart lap 147 with the 5 leading. Ryan's in 30th here with a caution at lap 149 for the 48 car in turn 3. I don't know if the 11 helped him or not there.
He never touched him. That's what he'll say. It's very accurate. He never made any contact, but he packed a whole heck of a lot of air on the guy.
Yeah. So they're staying out here. Ryan asks Josh about the 3 and the 45 accident. And then they talk about how they're surprised nobody's wrecked up front yet. And Josh says, "Hey, they're just trying to just give them a little bit, give them a chance, give them a little bit of time here. They'll take care of it." And
I can see why Ryan asked about the 3, and I've mentioned this in the Discord during the race, that on any big crashes, Ryan is usually pretty quick to ask about how the drivers are, and I think he's just, he can see this stuff happening. But yeah, we didn't mention it. We poked a little fun at Austin, but that was a vicious hit. Mm-hmm. I mean, they are going fast at Pocono. Maybe not as fast as they used to. They're still going extremely fast, and man, he took a huge hit. So so far it seems like he's doing okay, but I can see why Ryan was interested to know what went on with that incident.
Yeah. We restart lap 154 here. We get a caution in turn 2 for the 31. And the 5 comes around and pushes the 11 into the wall at the start finish line during this caution. So they were a little mad at each other there to begin with here. And we get the restart at lap 157 with the 11 leading. And this at the end here. Well, actually, so the previous
it actually happened on that restart. Yeah,
on that restart, lap 154. Why the 5? Yeah, because this is the controversy of the week. It's on all the podcasts. And
it's almost an exact replay of what happened at Pocono last year between the 11 and the 1. Though people kind of cheered him for that because of who the driver on the outside was. But I don't even know if I want to bring it up. But there's a lot of new fans of the 5 that I say are very vocal and can be angry sometimes. So I'm not surprised at the reaction at the end of the race, what ultimately happens here. But, I said replay of what happened last year between the 11 and another car. He kind of said the same thing. I ran him wide, but I left him a lane. It's up to them to lift or run into the wall. And that's the kind of the rub a lot of people have. Like, well, is that really racing, where you're basically saying you've forced a guy who was racing you side by side to make a decision of whether they should crash or not? So is that that's the big thing. So is that racing, or is that driving dirty?
I listened to the Actions Detrimental podcast before we recorded this, and as much as he makes excuses for the fact that he says he didn't hit him, the one thing he kept saying is, I couldn't see him. So, okay, you're saying you didn't hit him, but you're taking somebody's word on that. Maybe your crew chief said you didn't hit him. Yeah. But when he kept saying I couldn't see him, that's totally understandable. When you watch an in-car camera view of these things, the area that what they can see in front of them, behind them, with the camera, with the spotter is the only guy who lets you know when somebody's beside you and where they're at beside you. And there's certain terminology they have for that. So he's not lying when he said he couldn't see him. Did his spotter say he was clear or something? Because that's the guy who's got to say, he's at your door. He's even. And actually, he was even at the point that they bumped into each other. So, he can say all he wants that he didn't hit him or there was no damage or he didn't see a scratch or whatever. But that 5 car moved to the right into the wall for a reason.
He knew what
I
he
don't
was
care
doing.
how much. Yeah, he knew what he was doing. So
Just own it. I think Kyle Petty said it on
yeah,
the post race show. He said it today on an interview on the radio. Just own it. And I agree. If you're gonna do
Yeah.
that, there's so many reasons. He could have said, pressure was on. It's my 50th victory. I got my first win at Pocono. It'd be so special to get it there. 600th win for Toyota as a whole. Like, there's so many reasons why he could use as not kind of as an excuse for racing overly aggressive, and instead he's just like, I don't know, I don't think I hit him, I left him a lane open, just like I did last year. I left him a lane open. It's up to them to be able to stay
back
there.
off.
But
Yeah.
I don't know, a lot of people call him a hypocrite. I would agree, just because it's kind of that practice what you preach thing. When he first got his podcast, he talked about how there's a lack of respect out in the field. He gets in that incident with Bowman at, I think it was Martinsville, where Bowman pushes him up high and kind of into the wall to win a race, and he interrupts his victory celebration and calls him a hack and makes his charity a whole bunch of money off of t-shirt sales. And so it's just, it's true. Practice what you preach, and if not, just own it, man. Like, I don't know. And I tell you, we're not finished yet, but it was kind of funny that the week that Pocono debuts their new victory lane that's in the middle of the fan zone, you have a not very fan friendly winner at the end of this thing, and they stuck around during a celebration to voice those opinions.
Yeah, so we get to lap 157 here for the last restart here with the 11 leading, and the lap 158, the 41 spins in two, and I wrote down no caution question mark. And
more controversy.
Yeah, this is the one that irks me the most, because I'm watching this and I'm going, he's down. Okay, he went down on the inside there, but he's not off the track. Oh, wait a minute, he started. Oh, wait a minute, he didn't start. During all this, any other track, they throw the caution before they come around. But this one here, it seemed like they waited and waited and waited. Oh no, we're on the white flag. Now let's throw the caution, so we don't have to have another green white checker finish.
So,
and
there's 2 days of this in a row. Not the same situation, but in the Xfinity Series race, a bumper cover went flying off on the front stretch and lands there and sits there. And they basically were doing the same thing. They held the yellow. They didn't throw it. They kept waiting and waiting and waiting, and then finally threw the caution, like they didn't have a choice. But I think the Xfinity, somebody crashed. So they didn't. That kind of saved themselves, I guess, from having the field come around and hitting that bumper cover, and who knows where it could have flown up into the air. So it's kind of 2 straight days of officiating that was kind of shaky. I mentioned to you that Todd Gordon, Ryan's former crew chief, who has a radio show now, mentioned that he believed that he saw the caution lights flash very briefly, but they didn't. They turned them off immediately and then held the flag. So man, between the results of the race and that call, that packed sold out grandstand wasn't happy.
The Xfinity, they did call a caution for something else.
So yes, it was something else. Yep, something
else happened, and it kind of backed them off. And it's like it gave them okay, so we couldn't not call this one because of this caution. But they were waiting till turn 3 in the Xfinity race, then they were going to call the caution. It's like, what are you guys doing? Just call.
Initially, they told the spotters. Yeah, initially, I guess they told the spotters they were going to race to the finish. And then after the race, they said, "No, we're only going to let them go to turn 3." And it's like,
yeah. But on Sunday, he had spun out and he was dead in the water. And even if he moved a little bit, he was dead in the water. Them guys come around too, and another guy comes in and plows into him sideways because he gets, bumps through that turn and loses it. Just call the caution. Let's re-rack them. Let's do it again. We love the drama, obviously, right? I mean,
that's what was weird about the decision, is that NASCAR is actually known for being trigger happy on cautions and wanting that drama of overtime finishes. So it was odd that they, at the opportunity, I mean, think back to Ryan, his All-Star race win, where he's like a foot away from hitting the checkered flag, and they throw a caution. So it's like, man, why? I'm surprised they didn't do it sooner because, oh, here's our opportunity. One more restart. Maybe Hamlin. I mean, they're not thinking that, but, maybe somebody else wins beside Hamlin or something. Like,
Yeah.
it's weird that they actually made the opposite call
Yeah.
when in other instances, it's funny because in other instances, fans are like, oh, why didn't they just let it end? Why didn't they just let that race end? They just wanted to re-rack them. They wanted to do that.
Yeah.
So that's how fans are. But this one really was an opportunity here. And I understand it's a really big track and they thought maybe kind of like a road course, like maybe we'll wait and see if the guy gets going or not. But
yeah. So, the 11 wins, Ryan ends up 30th. Watching the in-car camera of Ryan like I do all race long. And as they pull in the pits, I like to watch because I see who comes over to the car and such. But a couple cars in front of Ryan, I see somebody running up to a window and going nuts. And I couldn't tell what car. And I hurry up and try and change the car view to somebody who finished in front of Ryan. And I still couldn't figure it out. I'm looking at different crew guys that got over there to break it up. And of course, my wife right away on Twitter, but it takes a good 10, 15 minutes for somebody to report it. It was Ryan Preece. He had run over to the 7 car of LaJoy. And I guess stacking pennies will be really interesting to listen to this week because Preece went in there.
Great week for podcasts.
Yeah. Preece went in there and started throwing hands. And I think it had to deal with the spin out. I think LaJoy caused him to spin out. I think something happened between the two of them in turn 2. So, that was pretty crazy because you would think there would have been more drama between the 5 and the 11. The post-race interviews were, of course, Denny won, so he don't care who boos him. He's starting to like that kind of thing. People are flipping him double birds, and he took a picture at some point, said something about, oh, look at all the 11s, Kim Kuhn, it was mentioned a couple of different podcasts, did a fabulous job asking questions of Kyle Larson. And by the third question, she kind of got the egg to crack finally and get him to say how he really feels. Because Kyle's very good at answering questions and not saying everything, that's on his mind. But she got him to at least finally say some things that have how he actually feels about what happened to him. So, I think this is going to, even though they're friends, I don't think they're going to be friends much longer. It seems like the way the high road that Denny has taken is kind of ticked Larson off a little bit. And who knows what happens at Richmond this week. Got a lot of things at Richmond that could happen this week. A lot of people be looking for each other.
Yeah. So from what I understand, obviously I think we both listened to Action's Detrimental. So Denny talks about it. Larson actually has like his own podcast that talks a lot about dirt racing, but it's called the High Limit Room or something like that. I guess he again addresses it on there. Corey LaJoy obviously has Stacking Pennies, so I'm sure he's going to talk about this incident with Preece. I didn't really see a clear replay of what happened there, but I've heard some spotters and stuff say that LaJoy was like way down to the bottom of the track and then shot way back up the track and took him out. I think someone had also said, Corey mentioned after the race that Ryan didn't know that they were actually 3 wide and probably needs to watch the replay, something like that. So I'm sure Corey's pretty good about going through what happened on the track. So we'll have to see. So there's like at least 3 podcasts there that you might want to listen to if you're really interested in the drama that happened over the weekend for sure. So unfortunately, as you said, 30th place finish for this 12 team, though, it's definitely promising the fact that they came to the track and after just one adjustment had a ton of speed. Strategy worked out perfectly. They drove to the front, drove to the lead, and that's when the car's engine kind of went south. But the unfortunate part about all of this is the fact that in the last 3 weeks at least, they've kind of tumbled down the standings a little bit. So now Ryan in the overall points sits 9th now at 120 points behind the leader. And it's a new leader again this week, Martin Truex Jr. So I guess actually he led last week after he won as well. So, but still, prior to this, a couple races ago, Ryan was just 75 points back, and then he went to 85, then he earned those points back again. And then now he's with this finish, unfortunately, and, just picking up a couple of stage points because of the strategy, 120 points back the lead. And it's a little bit frustrating or, I don't know, disheartening because it's, they win the Coca-Cola 600. They take charge of the Cup Series point standings. They are in the lead. We're thinking they're going to win this. They have a great shot to win this regular season championship, and just, they have a couple good finishes since then, but they've had a lot of unfortunate incidents that have happened, and this one seems to be out of their control. So, plus side, they got the win in the bank. So
yeah, they got the win in the bank.
That's all.
And the key, you're going to be part of the 16, and the key is between now and the end of the 16 stage, getting to the 12. Improving certain things, improving speed. Speed is there in certain situations. Strategy is definitely there in all the situations. And the thing is, there's 6 weeks left of the regular season. Let's get a couple more stage points if we can, and see if we can get another W. 2 years ago, Ryan wins Atlanta and goes all summer with really nothing going on. Knew they were in the playoffs, and then wins the last 2 races before the playoffs. Wins Michigan, wins Daytona. So, there's some opportunities in the next 6 weeks to win races and get stage points, and you just got to accumulate those things, because once the playoffs start, you reset all the points based on your playoff points too. So, having a win, having what was it, three stages, they're going to have 8 points to start a round. So let's see if we get to 10 points or get it to 13 points. So when you're starting those rounds, you're starting off a little better than everybody else. That's all the next couple of weeks are about, fine tuning some things. Hopefully, like I said, Ryan Flores gets back and healthy. But hopefully before the playoffs, if possible. I don't know what kind of healing time that kind of thing takes. Like I said, today's day and age, it might not be as bad because they might have went in with arthroscope or whatever, but I just hope he's going to be okay and healthy and ready to go soon, because we're going to need every man, all hands on deck, ready to go come playoff time.
Absolutely. So to wrap up our discussion of Pocono, why don't we jump over and see what happened in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League? And for once, I'm excited. I'm excited to talk about the results this week. And it's kind of funny. I had a really good week fantasy wise, but it wasn't like a huge points day. Like I'm kind of shocked the fact that I actually snuck into the top 10 in points earned at Pocono with kind of a decent total here. I've seen some bigger weeks from people. So I'm going to go through my starting lineup here. Kyle Larson, 27 points. Kevin Harvick, 33 points. I know we didn't really mention it in the recap, but I was kind of pulling for Harvick there. Harvick had a pretty decent shot to win that race, so just didn't really get the opportunity, didn't get that final lap to see how things could shake out, but really good day for the 4 teams. So 33 points from him. I have Martin Truex Jr., 44 points. Denny Hamlin, the winner, 55 points. Ty Gibbs, who's kind of silently been having a pretty decent rookie campaign, finishing the top 15. He's actually trending a little bit more into the top 10 recently. So Ty Gibbs got me 36 points. And one thing, this wasn't really a big swing here, but I actually had started Christopher Bell, and I believe I had Truex in the garage. So I swapped those right before the end of stage 2, put Bell in the garage. So I left 31 points there, but really it wasn't that bad. Larson was running really well prior to that. So Larson did only get me 27, and I left Bell in at 31, but it was too late to make that. So, and I thought maybe the reason why I did so well was I cleaned house on the featured matchups, but that's actually not true. I picked Harvick over Bubba, and that was correct. I picked Bell over Chastain, that was correct. But then I picked Suarez over Bowman, that was wrong, and I picked Blaney over Keselowski, and that was wrong. So I actually only got 2 of the 4 in the featured matchups, but still ended up earning 215 total points at Pocono, which was good enough for the 10th position. So what did your roster look like? I think you ended up in around 37th, 38th or so in points earned, so you might have struggled a little bit.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull it up here, trying to find it. My online here. I know that I had actually taken Logano and moved him to the garage at the right point in time. Thankfully. Let's see where there's fantasy here, and it's already looked like it's looking forward
I can see
here.
I can see what you had. So you started Kevin Harvick, got you 33 points. You had Bell 31, Keselowski 21, Truex 44, and Ty Gibbs got you 36. You did swap Logano into the garage, which was good because he only got you 12. He would have only gotten you 12 points. in your featured matchups. You picked Harvick over Wallace. That was right. You picked Bell over Chastain. That was right. And then you did the same as I did. You picked Suarez over Bowman and Blaney over Keselowski, and both of those were wrong. So you ended up with 185 total points and 37th on the day when it comes to points earned. So that's where you were, and we'll go now and we'll recap the top 10 in points earned at Pocono Raceway. And even though I've already said it a multiple times, still in the 10th position, Team Blaney host Adam with 215 points. That's my team, 215 points earned. In 10th, we have a tie here for 8th with JD Racing and Go 12 Go with 218 points. In 7th, it's Christian Dana, 220 points. In 6th, we have Alyssa C with 223. 5th, Factory of Sadness 6 with 224 points earned. And 4th, Blaney or Bust with 228. In 2nd, we have a tie between Rochi 12 and Fike 21 with 238 points. And the old champ here, Clyde's Chicken Pit Racing, ekes out a victory here by just 2 points with 240 points earned. So Clyde's Chicken Pit Racing, a 2-time champion in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League, wins the weekend at Pocono Raceway. But let's take a look now at the overall standings in the league. And unfortunately, I'm still mired in the back here. I think I might have moved up a position or two, but in the 37th overall position with 3,732 points. And man, I'm sorry for you, Steve. You've fallen again.
Yeah.
A little bit further out of the top 10. You're now in a tie for 15th with Moose Hunter 1960 at 3,922 points. But here, let's take a look at the top 10 right now in the overall standings in the league. We have Fike 12 has moved into the top 10 with 3,950 points. In 9th is Alyssa C with 4,014. In 8th is Blaring Idiots with 4,018. And 7th is Go Larson. I'm sure they're excited about this week, 4,023. In 6th, we have Eric D15, 4,026. In 5th, we have Penske Fan 24 at 4,028. In 4th, we have No Hesitation, 4,037. In 3rd, Blaney's Daisy, 4,066. 2nd, Christian Dana, who has been the model of consistency, I think, all year long, 4,087. And rounding out in the first position, Factory of Sadness 6 is leading the way in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League overall standings with 4,173 points. And that brings us to Richmond Raceway. We're going short track-ish racing this weekend at Richmond, and I'll run through here the NASCAR on TV report here. Friday actually is, I believe, when Xfinity and trucks have some practice and qualifying going on. But on Saturday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, the NASCAR Cup Series practice and qualifying at Richmond. You can catch that on USA. Again, that's 12:30 p.m. Eastern. 3 p.m. Eastern Time, you have the Xfinity Series Road America 180. So keep in mind that they are up there in Wisconsin. So that's the only standalone race that they're having out there at Road America since they took the Cup race and they sent it over to Chicago. One kind of quirky thing that's going to happen in the Xfinity Series race, Steve, is that, you know, how we've been running the road courses without stage breaks. That's not going to happen in this week's race in the Xfinity Series. They're actually going to have stage breaks because they're going to run the race without live pit stops. Sorry, Steve, if you have to suffer through that one with some stage breaks. It's going to mess with their strategies a little bit. But then 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, if you haven't had enough NASCAR racing yet on Saturday, the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series back at Richmond Raceway for the Worldwide Express 250. And then on Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, July 30th, the NASCAR Cup Series Cookout 400 at Richmond. You can catch that on the USA Network. Now, the first couple seasons of the podcast, when we got to Richmond, it was always a little bit apprehension, a little bit anxiety, a little bit unknown about what Ryan was going to do. But luckily, back there in 2021, they turned things around, and he finished 11th and 10th. And that was definitely a turning point for Ryan when it comes to this racetrack. He has 14 starts at Richmond, 3 top 10s, and this is why there was some anxiety here. An average finish of 20.5. Average start of 12.6, which isn't too bad. But as I said, going back to 2021 here, 11th, 10th, 7th, 10th, and then 26 happened earlier this year. It's worth noting that they had some some struggles here with execution in this race in the spring. Ryan actually got a speeding penalty on pit road early in the race, had to drive back up through the field, which he did. And then later on in the race, they had another pit road penalty that involved the pit crew. I believe it had something to do with an equipment violation. I don't know if they had a wheel go loose. I don't think he ran over anything, or did he go out of the stop with the jack or the gas can? I feel like it was something like that. Like they might have removed
the wedge.
The wrench. Okay, yes. So
yeah, so that was the wrench.
So that
where did
that
they start
actually
the race?
they started in 17th, so it actually wasn't that necessarily that great of a starting position. So, but he did get a pole there in 2022, and he started 10th in the fall race of 2022. So that's what I'm say, because since the new car, that's why I wanted to ask you, because statistics are great and you do a great job with them, but sometimes this new car, the last 2 years, is like the only real sample size because it's different. The setup's a little bit different. So the pole is amazing. I was surprised the 17th was actually one of them too. Yeah.
So
first, 10th, 17th are his 3 starts in the next gen car, 7th, 10th, and 26th. So with that, so that penalty that happened with the wedge wrench left in the window there was actually under green flag conditions. So he lost 2 laps by having to come in and serve that penalty. They were only able to make one of those laps back up. So he finished a lap down in 26 after having a pretty strong car throughout the day. So we know they have the speed at Richmond in this new car. It seems like he's figured something out with even the line. I know you said the car, he did kind of turn the corner in the previous generation car. I think a lot of that actually did have to do with the racing line that he was running. So he has some things figured out. So I did see some chatter on social media, after, oh man, we have this engine issue and now we're going to Richmond. It's like, well, folks, things are actually trending a lot better at Richmond as long as they can get the execution thing ironed out when they go to Virginia this week.
It'll be a lot of strategy too with, tires versus, how many stops you're taking in the run. Actually, just as interesting it'll be Monday too, because they're going to do a tire test on Monday, and they're going to do not tire test. There's a short track testing they're going to do there Monday. But something they won't be implementing for probably another year. But this should be a great weekend to see what happens. Practice, once again, same thing with practice, to see what happens in practice, see what kind of adjustments they come out with right off the bat. Do they unload just fast right off the bat? Do they adjust something like they did last week? Getting my anxiety up a little bit. But it's going to be kind of fun to watch once you get to the start of the race. I think that this next gen car races better than the previous generation car there did. So
absolutely. At least as far as excitement and drama goes, it's been much better there.
Yeah. I mean, we went to a Richmond race a couple of years ago, and it after a restart, it was single file and nobody could pass anybody. The last 3 races since the next gen's been there, we've seen some actual passing. Guys got too wide. Guys actually ran a high lane and got by people on different occasions there. So, this should be a fun one to watch Sunday afternoon. I can't wait to see what Team 12 brings to the table.
Yeah, I think from what I remember from our recap episode after the spring race, I said, despite the struggles that the 12 team had in the race itself, I think I said to you, I think Richmond is back on the list of tracks. I know the both of us, we've been trying to get to new tracks this year specifically. So in 2024, Richmond, unless this race just totally stinks, but 2024 Richmond, it might be one of those new tracks we want to target to get to. I know you've already been there, but it's not on our list just yet. So again, if you want to tune into this race, the NASCAR Cup Series Cookout 400 at Richmond Raceway, you can catch that 3 p.m. Eastern time. If the race isn't just enough, you can also tune into practice and qualifying on 12:30 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday and see how things are going to shake out and set up, and see where Ryan Blaney is going to start this race at Richmond.
Check out the new body armor paint scheme.
That's true. Weekend. Yeah, that's true. It's a body armor week. Obviously, that last paint scheme, the last time you ran a body armor paint scheme was at the Coca-Cola 600. It was that sweet cherry lime scheme, and they ended up in Victory Lane. This scheme looks a lot similar to what they ran earlier in the year or last year, but it's just a little bit tweaked. It's still white and red and yellow, but they've added a lot more yellow lines and accents to the sides of this car. So I'm sure within the next day or two, we'll go ahead and share on social media the paint scheme preview that Penske puts out, and sometimes they're pretty good about even putting a little video out or some photos of the car too. So always love a body armor week. They've had some great body armor schemes this year between the cherry lime and the water, and now an upgrade to kind of this standard scheme. It's going to be something to look for at Richmond. And hey, who says we can't put body armor in victory lane for, I believe, a third time or fourth time, actually. I think Atlanta, Daytona, the Coca-Cola 600, that's 3.
600.
So we're looking for a fourth win for body armor, and I think that would be awesome to kick that off this weekend at Richmond. 2 more things to mention. Just jumping back to Pocono briefly, saw some awesome photos from the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation because Ryan actually held an autograph session and meet and greet at the foundation's tent at Pocono Raceway. Lots of photos with fans, with kids, getting autographs and pictures and making some memories. And I tell you what, anytime you can get to a track and the foundation tent is there, it's a must see, a must visit. And you can get lots of cool merchandise and hats and things that you can't get anywhere else but that tent or sometimes in their online shop. And so go over there, say hi to Patty, one of our friends, and she'll be happy to fill you in on everything that's happening with the foundation itself. And it's been really cool this last couple of times. They were at Talladega when we were there, and they actually had to move the meet and greet because too many people were going to show up for it. So, so if you did go to that over the weekend, share those photos on social media and tag us in it, and we'll be sure to share those out as well. One other thing to mention is the fact that Dale Blaney, Ryan's uncle, Dave's brother, Lou's son, Kate's son, went to victory lane for a second time this past weekend at Sharon Speedway in a 410 sprint car race. Really cool to see Dale won back kind of quasi full time again this year, after taking a few years off. You know, he's a National Sprint Car Hall of Famer, multi-time All-Star Circuit of Champions champion, won a ton of races in his career, a ton of races at Sharon Speedway. And this one, you know, kind of a comeback year for him, picks up his second victory. And the cool stat that Sharon Speedway actually put out in their release is the fact that the Blaney brothers own 4 of the 7 410 sprint car wins at their home track at Sharon this year. So Dave picked up 2 earlier in the year at Sharon, and now Dale has also matched his brother and picked up 2. So I'm not sure if they're going to both kind of key in on the rest of the dates of the year and try to see if one of the other can pick up another victory and kind of one up the next one. But really cool to see Dale back behind the wheel in that 32 Barris truck service car that he's been running in Northeast Ohio, Western Pennsylvania area.
Yeah, not in my house. As my number one said.
Yeah, you don't want to mess with any of the Blaneys when it comes to racing at their home track there at Sharon Speedway. So I think that pretty much wraps it up for this week's episode. Steve, I made a horrible joke on Twitter about maybe we'd run out of momentum, much like the car did this week. I said, if you can't laugh at the situation, you'd cry. And I think we did pretty good. I'm not depressed at the end of this thing. I think there's lots of positives to look at instead of the negatives. And we're heading over to a short track now that's run really well the last couple of races there. So I think there's lots of things to look forward to this week at Richmond. And let's see if that 12 team can bring some speed, give us something to cheer about, and give us a positive episode to record when it comes to Tuesday night next week.
Yeah, I think, definitely come out, check out the TikTok this week. I got a special one lined up previewing this episode, actually. So, when you see that on Wednesday morning, TikTok, Instagram, wherever, make sure you come to TikTok and check out Team Blaney on TikTok. We try to put something cool out every week. And I worked a little harder on this one. I think this one's going to be a lot of fun.
Thank you, everyone, once again for tuning into this episode of the Team Blaney podcast. If you'd like to learn more about myself or co-host Steve Dwight Mez, just listen to our very first episode that explores our Blaney racing fandom. You can interact with us on Facebook and Twitter at Team Blaney, and on Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Team.Blaney. Finally, we'd like to encourage you to support the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation. Established in 2018, this organization supports causes like the Alzheimer's Association and UPMC Sports Medicine through fundraisers, events, and membership in the Blaney Bunch Fan Club. To learn more, visit RyanBlaneyFamilyFoundation.org or follow them on any of their active social media channels. So, for my co-host Steve Mez, I'm Adam Rogers. We'll catch you next time right here on the Team Blaney podcast.
Good night, Brussels. Check out the TikTok.
Well, thanks everybody for coming. I hope you enjoyed it.